Right, so I am a Sibusiso Kotelo IFBB Pro, which is the International Federation of Bodybuilding, and I'm a pro bodybuilder in the open class. I've always played sports. I was a rugby boy. Actually, I started as a track athlete in primary and under 13. I still hold the record for under 13 sprinter in KZN, actually. And I got to grade 8. My high school did not have track, actually. So the only sports I could play was rugby. I tried soccer, didn't work out well. When it comes to bodybuilding, the story goes, I met a gent called Andrew Hudson, who was at the time, still is, an IFBB Pro. I met him at Virgin Active Gateway, and he walked up to me and basically told me that I've got the genetics for bodybuilding. Had no idea what the sport was at all. And I remember seeing this image of him posing on stage, and about 2 days later, I see Andrew Hudson again at the gym, and I was like, bud, respectfully speaking, there's no way I'm gonna do, bodybuilding, because I'm not gonna stand on stage in a Speedo. The only thing he said to me was, it's not called a Speedo, it's called a posing trunk, and he walked away. So that's more or less how I knew about what bodybuilding was. Cut a long story short, I then met a guy who was a year my senior in high school, and he took me to a gent called Stongele, and he took me under his wing, man. And 6 months later, found myself on stage, and Lord behold, the guest poser for that show was Andrew Hudson. So I saw him again, and yeah, so that's how the story goes in terms of how I got myself into the sport. So the year 2015, October 1st, I met the gentleman of Jack Lotter, who is currently my coach, and with no certainty of what was going to happen in the next couple of years, the only agreements we had with each other is that we were going to pursue a pro card. Had no idea what that looks like. We had no idea where the resources were going to come from. The only plan that we had was basically being able to articulate how we're going to reverse engineer the process. So what would it mean and look like for us to get the pro card, okay? In order for us to be able to reverse engineer the process, we had a clear vision of how, number one, it needs to look like on stage. Number two, your body fat percentage, your muscle mass that I needed to acquire. In order for you to reverse engineer the process, the first difficulty I had was eating, all right? I was cruising on 2 meals if I was lucky, okay? And that was because a lot of things. I wasn't a big eater initially, and also just finances were a bit of a strain at the time. I was dieting on bread. If I was lucky, I was getting a supplement shake in. So the first thing I needed to do was actually set up alarm clocks. I used to eat according to time, not according to hunger. So by that I mean, I actually still use it today. I have my first meal at 5 a.m. in the morning, which is a smoothie or shake, okay? My next meal is at 8:30, and then I go and train with my strength and conditioning coach, Josh, and then my next one is at 12. Next one is at 3, just before I train with Jack in the afternoon. And then I have a post-workout meal at 5, and then I eat again at 8, and then I eat again at 11 o'clock, then I go to bed. Now this happens every day, okay? And when we started though, it was so difficult that at some point, for lack of a better word, we call it a crash diet. Jack would literally have me eating every 2.5 hours, including sleep time. And I think that's what a lot of people didn't realize when I made a post about that, because sleep time meant I was eating at 12 midnight, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 o'clock, 8, 10, as it goes on, right? Just to be able to get my eating, I want to say habit correct, because in bodybuilding, a lot of guys can train, a lot of guys can, be the hardest worker in the room. But when it comes to eating, I think that's the biggest difficulty a lot of us face. And that's where you grow. When I met Jack, I was 100 and, on stage, I was actually 100, in the last competition I did before I met Jack, I was 106 on stage. And we went from that, and my last show, I was about 127 kgs on stage. Now to get the lean mass over the last probably, call it 7 years, it's not easy. And also you're looking at an off-season weight where I'd probably be about 114, and now off-season we've reached a high of about 146. Whether I'm hungry or not, it's inconsequential. I gotta sit down and have a meal. So that becomes the monotonousness of bodybuilding, where you got to do what you got to do. Whatever supplements that you got to take, it has to happen at a certain time. Whatever multivitamin you got to take, it's got to happen in a certain time. So that becomes what I call being a creature of habit. You know, do you enjoy it? Maybe not. Are you going to do it? Yes. That's the fundamental basis of it. I'm constantly seeing my chiropractors. I'm constantly seeing my massage therapist. I'm constantly seeing my doctors, my medical team, you know, whether I'm reviewing my bloods, trying to make sure my health markers are on check. There is no time where I can just, you know, for lack of a better word, chill. Because this is what I do 24/7. You know, I watch how much water I drink, I watch how much sleep I have. It becomes it becomes an obsession, if you know what I mean, because you know, you go to bed and you're going, okay, I got 8 hours of sleep today, you know, well done, because that's your recovery, you know. I go to Thrive to try and do my ice baths and my sauna. So it becomes, you embody it. It becomes who you are, you know, and there's certain things where you're also very comfortable saying no to because it doesn't serve or form part or even beneficial to what you're trying to achieve. You know, you're not going to be the binge drinker that goes out Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, you know, because you then know that you're going to miss a meal the next day, you're going to miss a training session the next day. It just basically becomes who you are. And that's why for the larger part of the argument that always goes on social media is that bodybuilding is not a sport, it's a lifestyle. And if you're not amped mentally to adapt to that lifestyle, it's easy for a lot of people to fall off the wagon because then they lack the consistency that they need in order to sustain themselves to get to the top. So when it comes to the training, you got to be as disciplined and mentally strong, you know, because I normally say this to a lot of people, is that you got to have a very unhealthy but healthy relationship with pain.